Today we check out the other side of high-end keyboards, which isn't really appreciated by outsiders, but is loved by many enthusiasts. And this is the group of electrostatic capacitive keyboards, which the famous Topre switchboards belong to. This is the NiZ or NiZ EC87 Chopin electrocapacitive keyboard, in which is manufactured by Plum, which many of you may know. Inside the box we get a plastic ring keycap puller with an extra set of stabilizer clips. We also get 30 extra 10-gram springs, and finally the keyboard itself. Alright, so this is a 10 keyless keyboard, so the numpad is chopped off, but this is also available in the normal full-size layout if you want. You can always have a separate numpad and bring it in when you need it, like the EC21 numpad that I have here, which is also capacitive, and this just gives you more space on the desk. First impressions with this keyboard is that it has some decent weight to it, which is to be expected of a keyboard of this size. It's at about 930 grams with a cable, so nearly a kilo, although the outside is completely plastic like most other keyboards, and while there's hardly any flex to it since there is a steel plate inside, it does creak a lot when twisting it, but that's not really a problem with normal use, but it does make it seem a bit less premium. And the plastic just doesn't feel like a great plastic to me, and it does fit the term plasticky quite well in my opinion. The design is kind of mixed. This is available in white as well, which I personally prefer, but it still has that same angular shape, and I do like this sharp design. The side profile looks pretty cool without being too drastic, and I think it would actually look pretty sleek in metal with all these chamfers everywhere. But there's a few weird little bits on the top which don't really go well with me. The big one is the bit above the arrow keys. It isn't massively noticeable because it's pretty shallow, and actually when I first got the keyboard I didn't notice it because it was dark in my room, but in a lit environment it does catch the light because of all those angles, and it does make it really obvious. Of course, just a simple flat face would have been good and perfect, and I think most would feel the same. And then there's just a lot of unnecessary part lines and separations that break up the look, make it look more complicated than it has to be. Overall, it's a somewhat simple and sleek design, and I do like the shape of it, but the extra lines do detract from the aesthetic design in my opinion. On this version we have the front printed legends, so from the top we get a really clean and stealthy look, but when you're actually using it you see all the legends of course. Although since the keycaps and case are different colors, it doesn't have that full stealth feel that other keyboards with these types of keycaps have, like the Cooler Master Quickfire Stealth. The font or typeface is nice and simple, so no complaints there. The keycaps are pretty nice and thick 1.5mm keycaps, which are actually made from POM or POM plastic, which is quite interesting, but this is only on the black version, so the white version still uses PBT plastic instead. POM is a less common material for full keycaps and is more expensive. It's a low friction material and has better abrasion and solvent resistance. And then to add to that, these are actually cherry profile. So these are shorter than the normal OEM keycaps that you find on most keyboards, and is one of the favorite profiles in the community. We also noticed that these have a standard cherry MX stem because all the clones utilize MX stems on their switches, which makes them compatible with all the aftermarket keycaps, which is one of the downsides to the standard Topre switches with their proprietary stems. And this keyboard has a completely standard ANSI layout, so you could really chuck anything on there and it will be fine. On the bottom we have a couple of small rubber feet for non-slip, 2 flip-up feet that are also rubber tipped, but it's a more hard and slippery plastic, and these also flip out sideways. There's a 3-way cable routing channel, and finally our drainage hole. So they actually market this as a waterproof keyboard, although waterproof is a strong word because they do clearly state that it's only waterproof when liquids are poured from the top, so the liquids flow downwards and out the bottom. So you can't just submerge this in water, making it not really waterproof but more water resistant. Still, it is a great feature to have to make the keyboard more durable and long lasting. Alright, now to the best part. This is actually a rubber dome keyboard, so it isn't really mechanical, but these are much better than your standard memory keyboards you find everywhere, as these are using the said electrostatic capacitive switches, and it's the same technology as what the famous Topre switches are. So we have the keycap, which is on top of the plunger, which we push down, just like a normal switch, and that depresses the rubber cup, which has a conical spring on top of it, and then that interacts with the capacitive sensor on the PCB, which creates that actuation. Unfortunately, I actually couldn't take this keyboard apart, so it was nice that they also gave me an example key switch. The other thing that this has is a blue rubber ring, and all that does is dampen the upstroke sound, which is the high-pitched sound Topre switches make and makes up for most of the sound. And typing on this is something else, and is something I actually really do like. It's the lightest typing experience I've had, and it's just so soft and easy to type on. Many enthusiasts like to go upwards in weight with their switches, but I am a bit different in liking really light typing experiences, and that of course means that I always bottom out. Although usually by making things lighter, we cut back a bit on tactility and feedback, and that is one of the reasons many do seek slightly higher weights. And this is the case with these as well. Capacitive switches are tactile, but they're a different type of tactile to MX style switches, similar to a standard rubber dome. So if you depress it really slowly, it does feel linear because the bump is towards the top, and the bump isn't that sharp distinctive bump like on the MX style switches, as it's just the rubber cup collapsing. The only negative, which is the thing with Topre copies, is that they are a bit scratchy, unlike the legit Topre key switches which are quite smooth. The other thing is that clones don't really replicate the Topre feel accurately, but that's not a bad thing depending on how you look at it. I have a variable weight real force, so it has mainly 50 gram keys, a couple of 45s and a few 35s, and the real force 35 gram keys are quite mushy, which I never really liked. However, the clones are much sharper and don't have that mushy feel, which I really enjoy with these clones. We can also add the included springs to make the keys 10 grams heavier, and this just slips over the stem, just like the Spacebars on other Topre boards, although this doesn't have the same effect as having a dome which is 10 grams heavier, so it doesn't really add tactility to the key, but just more resistance. But I just prefer them without the extra springs, otherwise you're missing out on the uniqueness of the product. With all of this, the sound is unique and is quite enjoyable where the upstroke is muffled, and you get this unique rubbery sound when you bottom out, and is a different type of thok. This is no Topre Real Force board, but it's not trying to be, and it offers a completely different experience with the 30 gram domes, which I absolutely love. The build quality isn't at the same level as the Real Forces, but it still has a steel plate in there, which we can tell by magnets, and of course it's quite a bit cheaper. As for electrocapacitive keyboards, in my opinion, for 45 to 55 gram domes, go with genuine Topre, but they don't offer the very common 35 gram ones that you see on many clones, and this 30 gram board is just something completely different and is pretty much exclusive. It's such a unique experience that I've been really addicted to ever since I got it. I wouldn't mind this in maybe a 65% layout like the Leopold FC660C, and once I do get it open, I'll lube the sliders to alleviate the scratchiness and make it even more heavenly to type on, and also a touch quieter. Thanks to digitevil.com for providing this keyboard for review. They actually gave me a 50% discount code for anyone that might be interested, and I'll also be checking out the numpad next, so stay tuned for that.